The problem with Francis Ngannou and Dana White is that Dana White is 100% correct about Francis Ngannou being a bad person. But he's not a bad person in terms of being an evil human being. He's a bad person in terms of loyalty. And loyalty, when it comes to business owners, means everything. I mean, Francis Ngannou, yeah, great story. Everyone knows his story, right? So he had to swim through oceans in order to escape his, captivity, in his terrible place, wherever it was. Was it Cameroon? Was it some other nation? I'm not really 100% sure. But whatever it was, he had to escape. And allegedly, he always wanted to be a boxer. So he went to this one gym, and then another guy told him, I think it was Marcel, I'm not really sure of what that guy's name is either, and told him, well, maybe you should try MMA. He has one MMA fight, and then he gets immediately signed to the UFC, I think in 2015. Again, all from memory. And I'm not about this, fact-checking bullshit. So if you guys want to check all this stuff out, go ahead. There's so many other people out there who just read a fucking script, and I just do it from the top of my head because I'm an actual fan, not a casual. So if I get some stuff wrong, it's only because I'm not staring at this shit. I'm thinking about it. And the main thing is when no one cared about Francis Ngannou, except for those two people, basically, his initial coach for MMA, the one that basically said that he should get into the UFC, and Dana White, who signed him to the UFC. I mean, think about this guy left everything behind. That includes, mom, dad, siblings, friends. He wanted nothing to do with his country. He wanted nothing to do with the people that he met prior to meeting these two men in his life. And he pretty much, obviously he said, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to escape this hell. And these two men are helping me. They're helping me with their time. They're helping me with their money. I think that his initial coach also, who by the way is now the coach of Sidogan, unless that changed recently, that guy allowed him to train at the gym for free. He gave him food. He gave him a place to stay. I don't know if he got him his own apartment or if he had to sleep on someone's bed or floor or couch, whatever it was. But Francis Ngannou came from, he had nothing. He had no money. He had no food. He had nowhere to live. He had nowhere to stay. And because of these two men, they basically catapulted him into a major superstar on the planet that gets to fight two of the greatest living boxers right now, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. He does great against, Tyson Fury. I mean, arguably he won. He knocked down Tyson Fury. He didn't knock him out, but he did knock him down. I mean, this is a guy who never boxed professionally. I think maybe he had one fight, maybe two fights. I don't know. I could be wrong on that. But in terms of professional, in terms of the world global level, actually fighting for, fighting against world champions, that's never happened before, crossing over from MMA. And then he fights Anthony Joshua. Yeah, he gets knocked out by Anthony Joshua. But you know what? Everyone knew that was going to happen. The fact that he even survived Tyson Fury, and not only survived, but did well because Tyson didn't really take him seriously, is amazing. And he fights the two guys in boxing that should have fought each other. Now, he should be thanking and be eternally loyal to both of these two guys, his initial coach and Dana White. So Dana White has every right to be pissed off at Francis Ngannou. Now, I'm just going to say this once. You can watch my other video. You can listen. It was highly distasteful and classless for Dana White to berate this guy at UFC 308 the way that he did, considering what Francis Ngannou went through with losing his kid, Kobe. That's an absolute tragedy. However, I am not going to chastise Dana White for having to continuously deal with stupid questions from otherwise smart people, because the guy that asked the question the most recently, I really respect him. He's one of the top MMA reporters. He is legitimately a journalist. I want to give him a shout out. His name is Mike Bond. I think that Mike Bond is the one who asked him the question about Francis, and I was scratching my head because I'm like, normally he asked the right questions, but then again, he did ask the right questions because I'm talking about it and it made the news. So, again, I can't be too angry at him, but, Dana White only answers, he only talks about Francis Ngannou when he's questioned. He doesn't bring him up. He doesn't bring up the PFL. People love bringing up the PFL because they know that it pisses him off, and he always gives them a lot of content to talk about. But he's, Dana White is 100% correct saying that Francis Ngannou is not a good person because he's talking about loyalty. When no one cared about Francis Ngannou and was paying him shit and allowing him to live on the street, his family, his friends, allegedly, the people that he grew up with, the country that he escaped, didn't give two shits about this guy. And these two men decided to give him not only money, but Dana lets every UFC athlete train at these amazing gyms called the UFC PI or the UFC Performance Institutes. So let's say, Francis didn't have a coach, really. I mean, other than this guy from France or Cameroon. I'm not really sure where he's from, but anyway, that guy. And he didn't have anyone in the United States. So whenever he came to the United States, he needed somewhere to train. He had nowhere to train. And this is when he first started out. I think it was 2015 when he came to the UFC. He had no one. He had nowhere. And Dana's like, you know what? I'll hook you up. I'll give you a car, I'll give you an apartment, I'll give you money, and you could come train at the PI, whatever you like. Use all of our coaches. We'll even give you food. We'll give you whatever you need. We'll give you a diet. We'll get you in shape. And initially, he was all thankful for that. Why? Because no one wanted to give him shit. I mean, no one gave this guy a damn thing in life except for these two men, his coach and Dana White, president of the UFC. Dana White has not only done this for Francis Ngannou, he's done it for many people. So it's really funny. You know, I've attacked Dana White in the past for the way that he's spoken to people. I've never understood why people attack him for money, because he is extremely generous with money. People look at, well, you know, the company's $4 billion rich and he's only giving out $1 million. Dude, only $1 million? Listen to yourselves talk. Think about what these guys do. They punch people in the face, they knock them out, they choke them out, and they get $1 million for less than 25 minutes of work. Then you're going to say all this bullshit. Oh, but what about the coaches and the trainers and the dietitians? You don't need coaches, trainers, and dietitians to tell you how to fight her, to tell you how to be a good fighter. All you need is a coach who's going to be loyal to you. You don't need 15 people in your fucking corner. No, you don't need a dietitian. The UFC gives that to you for free. No, you don't even need a coach. The UFC will give that to you for free. You don't need a gym. You don't need a gym membership. UFC will give that to you for free. So all this bullshit about they need more money. No. He's making millionaires out of people who would have nothing else to do in life, because all they know how to do is beat the shit out of people, and they do it well, and he rewards them for it. So stop complaining about the money that Dana White is giving to people. Some of you don't even know what it's like to have $100,000 in your bank account. That is a fucking lot. That is a lot of money. And if you don't know how to utilize that, you're a moron. Think about that. 10 times the amount of what anyone would need to live a perfect, beautiful life. $1 million is earned by people like Adesanya, Volkanovski, Alex Pereira, Islam Makhachev, now Ilia Topuria, who, by the way, married a rich wife, so that's why he has this fucking house. It's not because of his most recent fights, trust me on this one. But all these guys are getting millions, and they're all spoiled. I mean, look at John Jones. He has so many millions, he doesn't even care to fight anymore. Why? Because he gets a shitload of money. And you get these idiots complaining. Let me tell you something. The lowest bottom part of the UFC fighters who just started, they get $10,000 to fight. You guys are going to say, oh, but there's nothing. What do you mean that's nothing? $10,000 for one fight? They have the option to fight 10 times. They have the option to fight like 10 to 20 times a year, really, if they wanted to. There's no reason why fighters can't fight 10 times a year. They just choose not to. I mean, look at this guy, Sharabuta Magomedov, who I've been talking about for months. I mean, this guy fought, I think, like 5 times already this year. So think about it. Let's say he's, quote unquote, only making $50,000 to fight. Well, he just banked $250,000. That's $250,000, you morons. So stop complaining about Dana White being cheap. He's not cheap. He's incredibly fucking generous. You guys just need to shut your mouths, because you don't even know what it's like to have that kind of money within, spitting distance. You just imagine what it's like, and you listen to these fighters. I mean, Francis Ngannou bitching and moaning. Well, I have to pay my trainer. I have to pay my diet coach. I have to pay my gym. Motherfucker, you don't got to pay for any of that shit. It's given to you. What are you talking about? Okay, so anyway, back to Francis Ngannou, because I digress. So now think about Francis's career. Did he start off well? Kind of. He was knocking some people out, and then he met this guy named Stipe Miocic, who beat the shit out of him. And, he went on this little depression trip, I guess, because he wasn't doing well. And then he comes back, he beats Stipe, changes his whole outlook on life. And then I saw the first red flag, the first public red flag, because there was already a lot of red flags before this that I wasn't paying attention to. But the first red flag was that he fires his coach. And his coach went online. He's like, I'm no longer working with Francis Ngannou, and I wish him the best of luck. And Francis then goes on this loser's podcast. I'm not even going to say his fucking name, but let's just say it rhymes with Smellwani. Go to Hellwani. Ariel Smellwani, fake phony fraud, who also does nothing but chastise fucking Dana White because he's a little bitch, but I digress. The only person who gives a shit about talking to Francis Ngannou is this guy. Why? Because they have something in common. They both hate Dana White. One of them for absolutely no reason, and one of them because he's just a little weasel prick. You figure out who's who. But anyway, I digress once again because it's fun to do that stuff. He basically says, it wasn't working out with his coach. And when he was questioned, well, what exactly happened? I don't want to get into it, but it's very complicated. And it's like, what? I mean, this is the guy who let you train for free. Like, you should be loyal to him no matter what the fuck happens in life. This guy pulled you off the street, gave you food, money, clothing, a free gym. He coached you, and you're just going to dump him like a fucking piece of shit because you have money now and you have other people around you. All right? So that was like the first red flag. The second red flag was that there was all this talk about him fighting John Jones, and he gets this injury, and he has a surgery that he could have put off, but he decided not to put it off. And he only had a year left in his contract, and he thought he was going to let his contract run out, but then it didn't run out. And this was the huge controvery time where this is where Dana White started talking about him. And he's like, well, I don't know what he's doing. He's playing games. I wanted to come back. I wanted to recover. And he all just out of nowhere, Ngannou starts talking about, I want to be free. The UFC will not let me fight in boxing. I want to be able to be able to go out. It's not about the money. It's not about the money. It's about being free. And the implication was that he was being like a slave. I mean, come on. You know, this huge black dude, and he's saying the bald white guy is holding him captive. That's implying slavery. Like, let's be honest. That's why he kept saying, I want to be free. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. I want to be free. Do you know that Conor McGregor had to pay, like, I don't know what percentage, but it was some ridiculously high percentage of his purse. I hate the fact that they call it a purse because it sounds a little gay and I'm not into that shit. But he had to pay a significant portion of the money that he made when he fought Floyd Mayweather to the UFC. Now, did Conor McGregor fucking blink and say, what are you talking about? Fuck you, Dana White. I want to be free. You're not right. You're shit. No. He said, because, I mean, Conor is basically, he was in the same situation. He was just a little kid. Like, he was so happy when he made the 60 G's, if anyone remembers that, you non-casuals, when he was like, 60 G's, Dana. And now he has, like, you know, millions of dollars in the bank. I mean, come on. He remembers who got him out of poverty. He's the one who, he remembers who got him out of the Irish streets. I mean, to this day, he doesn't talk shit about Dana at all. He might be stolen because he doesn't want to fight. But the point in bringing McGregor up is that he wasn't released from his contract, okay? And he said, well, what can I do to make it beneficial not only for me, but for you guys? I want to fight this. It's a huge opportunity. A lot of money could be made. Is there something we could do? And they came up with an idea. Dana White would help promote Conor McGregor, and it was Conor McGregor's promotion, which basically went nowhere, but it doesn't matter. He was able to, you know, do it under his own name. He gave Dana White and the UFC a significant amount of his money from the Floyd Mayweather fight, which was he was still making a lot, but I know that he gave a huge percentage of it to either the UFC or Dana White or both. And Dana White went out there, he helped promote it, he had a great time, and he fought Floyd Mayweather, and he did a great job, and he was the first one to do this boxing thing before Ngannou was even talking about that shit. And then guess what? He went back and he has some more fights in the UFC. They weren't great, they weren't successful, but it doesn't matter. He stayed loyal to the guy that pulled him out of poverty, and he had no problem giving him a shitload of money because he already made a shitload of money from this guy, and he's like, this is the least I could do is to give it back to him and the Fertittas, who at the time were the owners of the company. What does Francis Ngannou do? I want to be free. I feel like I cannot do boxing. And of course, jerk-off Helwani doesn't ask him the obvious question. Well, why don't you do what Conor did and give him a huge portion of your money? And he's like, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. Okay, well, if it's not about the money. Well, Dana White couldn't fucking take it anymore. He's like, you know what, Francis? You want to talk? You want to bitch and moan? I'm going to make an exception. Get out of the UFC. I'm done with you. I'm done with your bullshit. Go make your money in boxing. Okay? So I don't know what Francis Ngannou thought was going to happen, but he got called by a bunch of organizations, one by one. And it didn't start with the PFL. I think it was Bellator at like the time, who was separate from the PFL. And then he got this, I forgot the name of the organization, but that guy Chitari, who has that Japanese organization, you know, the MMA thing that also incorporates boxing with Demetrius Johnson was over there for a minute. And, you know, a bunch of organizations called him. And of course, he goes on the one podcast that wants to talk to him, Ariel Smelwani. And one by one, what does he say about all these guys? Ichitawi, you know, he said that he offered me something, it's no good. And then I went to Bellator. They were not being fair to me. And I talked to Eddie Hearn, the boxing promoter. He said, we have a good meeting, but we not have no meeting. It's nothing. It's no good. And I have one or two others that I want to talk to. Now, isn't it funny? He had all these people courting him. We know they were throwing shitloads of money at him. Shitloads, right? And he didn't want to work for any of them. Why? Because he became a lazy prick. And he didn't want to work for any of them. In the background, while he doesn't want to work for anyone, suddenly he's fully healed from his fucking surgery. And there was like a 5 to 6 month period where he kept putting out there, oh, I want to fight Tyson Fury. As a matter of fact, I think when he was still in the contract with the UFC, as a smack in the face to Dana White, he appeared in the ring with Tyson Fury, implying that he was going to box him while he was still in the contract with the UFC, knowing that he wasn't going to be able to do that. Huge middle finger to the UFC. And this is when he started his relationship allegedly with Eddie Hearn. And Eddie Hearn, you know, one of the best, I mean, the most famous boxing promoter in the entire planet. All right. Anthony Joshua and all that stuff. And like a lot of other great guys. And, you know, Eddie Hearn, I mean, he got Eddie Hearn to start talking about it. And Eddie Hearn had nothing but positive stuff to say for him, but couldn't make a multi-million-dollar deal with this guy to fight Anthony Joshua. And he said, you know what? Yeah, I don't think that it would be a good fight because Anthony Joshua is going to knock him out. And of course, the one idiot, Ariel Smelwani, was like, oh, come on. You really think that Anthony Joshua has a chance against? And he's like, you know, Eddie Hearn was telling Ariel, dude, do you know who we're talking about here? We're talking about a seasoned veteran boxer who all he does in life is boxing, the same way that all Francis Ngannou ever did was MMA, and the same way I wouldn't put Anthony Joshua in a MMA fight against Francis Ngannou, there will be no way in hell that Francis Ngannou would step into the ring with Anthony Joshua and live. He will get knocked out, which is exactly what happened, but this was a few years ago. This is when, Francis Ngannou just ended his contract with the UFC. But even then, Eddie Hearn was like, but I think he should start off. He should fight a couple of guys first, and once he proves himself against those guys, then he can have a fight against Anthony Joshua, because he wanted the boxing community to first respect Francis Ngannou before he started anything. So the first guy that Francis Ngannou was talking about that he wanted to fight was Tyson Fury, and nothing happened with that. So Tyson just basically said, and you know what? It's really funny, because now I'm actually remembering this. Tyson Fury said publicly in an interview, he goes, that guy doesn't really want to fight. I spoke to him. He said he wanted to fight. Then I tried to set stuff up with him. Then I tried to set stuff up with him, and he doesn't really want to fight. He wants to fight other people. He wants too much money. No. So even Tyson Fury was talking crap about Francis Ngannou before they actually had their fight. So then Francis Ngannou said, well, the reason why I can't fight Anthony Joshua is because Eddie Hearn doesn't want me to. It's not about the money. It's just Eddie Hearn knows that I can beat him up. Okay, whatever. And then he tried a third guy. I forgot this guy's name, but he was a pretty major player. And this is the guy that Tyson Fury basically pulled an Undertaker with, where he got knocked out in the ring, but then he stood back up and he kept fighting and he won. Cannot think of his name right now, and I'm not going to search for it. Who cares? You guys search for it. You know what I'm talking about. That dude, he was talking about fighting him, and nothing ever happened. Then out of left field, out of nowhere, this new organization, the PFL, suddenly decides to recruit Francis Ngannou. Now, I made a very short video, which was on YouTube. It got millions of views, literally millions of views, just a 1-minute video. I suggested that the PFL would be the best organization for Francis Ngannou, because obviously it's not working out with anyone, and he could probably get a lot of money from them, but he's not about the money, right? Liar. But so he goes to the PFL, and he introduces it as, I'm going to be an athlete rep. I'm going to build a PFL Africa. So I'm going to start, I'm going to give back to my country. And I'm also going to fight 2 fights in MMA. And I have an open contract where I can fight whoever I want in boxing. Now that sounded great. It sounded great for Francis Ngannou. And my question was, what the hell is the PFL thinking? Because they only signed him for a 2-fight contract, but they're giving him all this money because allegedly he was making millions. And I'm sure he is, because this guy loves to throw out money to people. I mean, he signed Jake Paul, so he's paying a lot of money for Jake Paul, who, by the way, Jake Paul is supposed to be the American athlete rep, and nothing ever came of that, because he never talks about the PFL. He only talks about himself because he's a fucking egomaniac. And then you have Dan Hardy, who actually is the only person who came from the UFC way back, who, retired a long time ago. He has a great gym. What's it called? Rough House, whatever it is. And over in Europe. And he does a great job with the PFL. He's a great announcer. He brought all of his UFC stuff to the PFL, but no one really cares about the people in the PFL. So they don't promote Dan Hardy correctly. They don't even promote the fact that they have Jake Paul correctly. And they didn't really care about Francis Ngannou. They just thought that by having Francis Ngannou's name, somehow that was going to boost the PFL, but that didn't work. And now there's another period of time where Francis Ngannou is doing nothing, and people keep questioning Dana White. Well, what about Francis Ngannou? He's like, I don't know. He went to the PFL. Go interview the PFL. Go talk to him. Finally, he gets the Tyson Fury fight. Shocks the world, shocked me. He did extremely well. Somehow he lost the decision, which was bullshit. Next fight, that's when Eddie Hearn says, this is what I'm talking about. You want to prove yourself? Okay, now I'm going to put you in the ring with Anthony Joshua. You're going to get knocked out, but the Saudi's going to pay you a lot of money. So he does it. Now he does the interview. He gets knocked out, whatever. Okay, fine. The only thing he kept talking about right around the time of the Tyson Fury fight, right up until the Anthony Joshua and after, the only thing he kept talking about was money. The thing he said it wasn't about, it's not about the money, it's about being free. No, all he kept talking about, I got more money fight one fight for against in boxing than I ever got then from Dana White, who lied to me about money. Oh, but I thought it wasn't about the fucking money. So then he fights Tyson Fury, gets a few million. Then he fights Anthony Joshua, gets a few million. Now he just had his MMA fight. He did well in that, but no one cares, against the beast, the freaking 6'8" guy who was 280 pounds, much bigger than him. He chokes him out. No one cares about that because it wasn't promoted correctly, because the PFL has absolutely zero promotion, and they basically gave all their money that was supposed to be used for promotion to Francis Ngannou, let's be honest, and Jake Paul. And I'm sure Dan Hardy got something, but not as much as those two. Trust me on that one. And so Dana White gets questioned about Francis Ngannou. He's like, he's a bad guy. So what does Francis Ngannou do? He goes right to his little butt buddy, Ariel Smelwani. And of course, Ariel Smelwani, who does nothing but berate fucking Dana White. It's like, oh, why does he hate you? I don't understand. What happened? With his fucking plaid shirt and stupid looking glasses and shaved head. freaking, he looks like a special needs version of Drake, let's be honest. But anyway, I digress. So Francis Ngannou then says, you want to see pay stubs? I can prove that I make more money than Dana White ever gave to me. All right? He says that, and he expects Dana White to not retaliate. So Mike Bond asked him the question, because that happened before UFC 308. Mike Bond asked him the question, hey, I'm sure you heard all the buzz that Francis Ngannou was making, because he didn't mention Ariel Smelwani, because he knows that Dana White hates Ariel Smelwani for what Ariel did, concerning UFC 200, leaking the main event and getting banned for life from every future event from the UFC, even though he says he's not. He hasn't appeared at any future event because he never will ever be allowed unless he kisses the balls of Dana White, which he won't do. Anyway, I digress. Mike Bond asked Dana White at the UFC 308 post-fight press conference what his thoughts were concerning these comments from Francis Ngannou. And this is when Dana White is like, okay, all right, you want to get a reaction out of me? Here it is. Francis Ngannou is not a good person. He pulled some shit right before the first Stipe fight where he got destroyed. He owes me money and he owes you money for the shit performance that he put on at so many fights because he screwed stuff up. And he's a liar. And I want nothing to do with that guy. And I really don't care about him. All right? And that should have been nail in the coffin, done. Stop asking Dana White. Francis Ngannou should just be quiet. And that's like the end of it. Well, guess what? Go back and do your research, people. Go back and do your research. If you want to know the truth about Francis Ngannou, first watch his first interview, because I think he did 3 with Joe Rogan. Watch and listen to what he says and how he talks about Dana White. Unbelievably favorable. Listen to how he talks about his coach. Unbelievably favorably, right? Okay. Now watch as the progression goes on and then go listen to all of his interviews with Ariel Helwani. Early on, he's good with Dana White. Slowly but surely, Ariel's like, so what happened? And this is exactly what Francis Ngannou said. This is what he said. I read the contract. I realized the money was not good. I thought I deserved much more money, but I did not know English too well. So when I signed, it wasn't really what I want. I talked to UFC. They kind of give me okay contract after this. But then the money still was not good. Blah, blah, blah. And he starts talking about the fucking money. And this is before his injury. This is before the operation bullshit. This is before his stalling of not wanting to fight John Jones. This is when he fights his, former teammate who he claims was never a teammate. And Ciryl Gane says, no, we really weren't teammates, but we did spar each other and I did kick his ass and they released the footage. It was true. And then Francis Ngannou at the press conference when he was fighting Ciryl Gane says to Ciryl Gane's face, this is at the press conference. This is at the freaking press conference. He says, I knocked you out with a head kick. And Cyryl's like, he just looks over to him and he's like, Francis, why are you lying? Actually, these were the 2 biggest guys you ever heard with the most soft-spoken accents arguing with each other. It's the funniest thing. You gotta watch that. Go watch Ciryl Gane versus Francis Ngannou, the pre-fight press conference. It is hysterical. It is actually hysterical because they're arguing, but they're so soft-spoken. You got like Francis Ngannou is like, I remember when I fight you, Ciryl Gane, we spar, I kick you in the head, you go down. And then Ciryl Gane's response is like, Francis, why you lie, Francis? You liar. Francis, why you lie? And then you hear Francis Ngannou, I not lie. You liar. You know what's true. We came to gym. You put the gloves down. You sit for 2 minutes. You get up. You leave. And then you get the response from Ciryl Gane. Francis, why you liar? Why you lie? Francis, you not good. Why you lie like this? And it went on for like 5 minutes. It was the most hysterical. I mean, imagine like Wolverine versus, I don't know, fucking Galactus, if some of you know who that is. Well, let me give you someone who actually fucking know. All right, fine. Wolverine and Deadpool, instead of having an actual fight, which they fought many times in that movie, which was a great movie, go out and watch it. Instead, just very calmly, not even yelling at each other, just arguing about a stupid thing. Argue about their suit color or some shit. Like, hey, you have a very ugly suit. My suit is not ugly. You're a liar. No, really, it's ugly and I don't like it. And you said you were going to wear blue. I never said I was going to wear blue. Imagine those two, Wolverine versus Deadpool, and the movie being like that. That was what that press conference was. But anyway, I digress. It's just another example that I'm trying to give you of Francis Ngannou being called out as being a liar publicly. So his former coach called him a liar. Dana White, the guy that rescued him from hell and poverty and paid him millions of fucking dollars, he calls him a liar. And you have Ciryl Gane to his face, a current heavyweight fighter who is well respected. And, before John Jones took him down, which is idiotic because we're talking about John Jones here. But anyway, calling him publicly a liar. So you have these 3 very powerful powerful men calling him liars, and like no one believes that Francis Ngannou quite possibly could be a disloyal piece of shit because he's a soft-spoken, huge black guy who escaped hell from Africa. Like, this is what you judge it on? Why don't you judge it on the shit that people are actually saying in public and judge it on the merits of facts rather than your own opinion being biased because the guy sounds like a nice guy? Like, do you know how many nice guys there were out there that ended up being fucking murderers? Like, what about Charles Manson? Soft-spoken guy. Yeah, man, I just want to go out there and have some fun. And then he's like murdering fucking people and shit. I mean, I don't know. I could give you all types of fucking examples of weirdos who are like soft-spoken and ended up being psychopaths. So it doesn't matter how you speak. It doesn't matter how you look. It does, like, base it on the merit of the guy's character. How much evidence do you guys need? And then you get these idiot comments talking about, well, Dana White slapped his wife in public and there's a lot of fighters who are unhappy with him. Okay, Dana White owns a $1 billion organization called the fucking UFC. And in all those years, the only thing we got was a New Year's video of him smacking his wife across the face. Know what he does? The next press conference, he goes, you guys got me. I did something stupid. I apologize. I took care of it with my wife. I'm not going to leave the UFC because I love it too much. This organization needs me, but you're right. I fucked up, and that's the end of it. The next thing we hear, he announces slap fighting. If that's not the most genius fucking promoter that I've ever seen in my life, promoting a future organization by slapping his wife on New Year's, that is genius. I'm not saying he planned it like that, but I'm saying he parlayed it, like some of you guys like to say. He converted it, transduced it, whatever fucking phrase you want to use, into some money-making fucking scheme. That is pure genius. The best promoter on the planet right now is Dana White. The second best promoter is Eddie Hearn. And the third best promoter, I don't know who the fuck it is because I really don't care. But those two guys are running the planet in terms of promotions. Holy shit. Maybe the third one is not a person. It could be an entity like Netflix or something like that. But I digress, as they say. So it's like, guys, Francis Ngannou, not a good person, disloyal. You and I would not give two shits about a guy named Francis Ngannou if it wasn't for three people. His fucking coach, Marcel, I think that's his name, Dana White, and the third person is, I don't know who the fuck the third person is. I said three people because three sounds like a cool fucking number. So let's just say two people, all right? Never talks about his family, never talks about any siblings if he has any, never talks about, anything positive in his fucking life ever. And especially when it comes to men, Jesus Christ, I'm just imagining what kind of terrible fucking childhood he had with his dad or something, because he just can't seem to keep it together when it comes to other fucking men, especially powerful men in powerful positions like a coach and business owners like Dana White and even co-team fighters like fucking Ciryl Gane. So Francis Ngannou is not a good person. Francis Ngannou got what he wanted. It's not about the money, it's about being free. Okay, it was about the money. It wasn't about being free. You breached your contract with Dana White, but he let you out of it anyway. He could have sued you, but he didn't. You manipulated the contract to serve your own needs by getting that fucking surgery right when you didn't need it, and you saying that you were ready to fight. How could you possibly be simultaneously ready to fight when you're recovering from knee surgery? I think it was knee surgery. And it's like John Jones was ready to fight you. It would have been the biggest fight. Look, this is what you have to do, Francis Ngannou. You fight John Jones. You show your loyalty to Dana White. It was a one-fight contract. By the way, another thing, and like I have to bring this up, but he was on that Ariel Smelwani shows, that little weasel fuck with the glasses, the special needs looking Drake guy with the fucking plaid, and that stupid fucking podcast name he has now called Uncrowned. I mean, what does that imply? You're the uncrowned king of all media? No, that would be Howard Stern. And you are the uncrowned jerk off. So I now crown you as being head jerk off. I hate that guy so much. He's really not a good guy. Also, another scumbag. But anyway, I digress. He goes on Ariel Smelwani show, Francis Ngannou does, and he says, this is what he said. He said, when I went and they told me to fight John Jones, they said they would pay back pay and they were going to give me $7 million plus some other money to make it to $10 million for one fight. But this was not back pay. This was for the fight. So you see, they lied to me about the back pay. What back pay are you talking about? The back pay that you determined that you were owed after you signed a contract agreeing to be paid a certain amount of money? Like the fact that, when was the last time you ever heard of Dana White making a one-fight contract for anyone in the UFC ever that was worth $10 fucking million? Because that's what he was willing to pay Francis Ngannou. He was willing to pay Francis Ngannou $7 million plus a bonus, and this like includes the pay-per-view points, and it includes like promotion and sponsors and all this other stuff. He was going to bank $10 million on a super fight against John Jones. I'm sure John Jones was going to make an equal amount of money. So Dana White was willing to spend $20 million for one fight. And he would have been the high, and Dana White said this so many times, he would have been the highest paid UFC fighter of all time had he signed that one fight deal contract. But he didn't want to do it. He still had another fight under his other contract. Dana White's like, you know what? I don't care. Goodbye. I want nothing to do with you. And good luck with your life. Go make your money. Francis Ngannou made his money, and then he had an unfortunate turn of events with his kid. Terrible. I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for him for that. And that's totally separate from that guy as being a human being. As a human being, you got what you wanted, Francis. You screwed over people in your life. You made all that money. No one cares that you beat up some unknown guy in the fucking PFL because no one cares about the PFL. And now you're out there banking in millions of dollars. You could do whatever the hell you want in life. Well, you still have a chance because you are alive and you are breathing the last I checked. And everything is doing well for you. I think you have one more fight under your contract for the PFL, right? Why don't you show how much of a man you are and apologize to Dana White, first of all, publicly. Second of all, tell the fans, you know what? If John Jones calls me out when he beats Stipe Miocic in Madison Square Garden in December at the UFC, because by the way, it's going to be a quick, easy victory for John Jones. Stipe Miocic, I love you, dude. You have no fucking chance. And I don't even think Stipe is going to make it, so I think it might be, the fantasy fan fight, John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, because Tom Aspinall will be the backup for that fight, but I digress once again. If Francis Ngannou comes out and he apologizes publicly to Dana White and he says, I propose the following deal. If John Jones calls me out at the UFC, then I will fight John Jones. It'll be the UFC versus the PFL. Let's just do a crazy super fight and everyone can make money. I guarantee you Dana White would say, fuck yes, because Dana wouldn't have to pay anything directly to Francis Ngannou to make that happen. That would be all be on the PFL, because that would promote the shit out of the PFL. Or Francis Ngannou can say, I'm going to have my one more fight with the PFL. I'm going to be dropped from their contract and I will fight John Jones at the UFC for $10 million. But he won't do it because that's not what he wants. You got your money, Francis. You screwed over all these people. You're going to wake up one day in your 40s or your 50s and you're going to say, holy shit, I really shouldn't have been such an asshole, because I wouldn't be in this position that I am today with millions of dollars. Now suddenly people in your family fucking love you again. I'm sure all your friends that beat up on you and tortured you and talk shit about you in your home country, they all beg you for money, and I'm sure you're sending them money. And, I'm sure that everyone suddenly loves Francis Ngannou. When you have a bunch of yes men near you, you have really good coaches now, but you screwed over that one coach. You should apologize to him as well. And really, man, the main people you have to apologize for, me, I really don't care, but you have to apologize to the UFC fans for leaving them, because you could have given them the fight of the century. You should have been the guy fighting John Jones at Madison Square Garden this year, December 2024, for the super fight of the decade. As a matter of fact, the heavyweight super fight of all time would have been Francis Ngannou versus John Jones in 2024. That's not going to happen, but you still have time to redeem yourself. You could do it in 2025. I don't know what kind of faith or hope I have in you, but I'm just going to tell you this. If you want to be known as a nice guy, Francis, if you want to be truly known as the misunderstood guy saying, you see, I said it's not about the money, it's about just being free. Now I can do this on my own turn. I can do my own turn. I can fight John Jones when I want, and it's okay. Everything is fine. I fix it. I understand. I look at life different now because of what happened. Great. Then I will respect you. But until then, Dana White, I got to give you props, man. You were right about Francis Ngannou all along. He's not a good person.